Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I've been seriously thinking about the shooting on Wednesday night in Charleston. And I've been through a lot of different emotions about this. I mean, I heard it yesterday morning. I was going to the dentist at like 6 o'clock in the morning, so I decided I would see what NPR had to say about the world. And I went through it, first of all, once again, horrified. But then I felt really, really sad. Really, really sad. And it's accompanied by a lot of, puzzlement. I just can't wrap my mind around why we can't, figure this out. The president said, and I think this is one of the biggest understatements he's ever made in his administration, at some point, we as a country will have to reconcile that this type of violence doesn't happen in any other advanced countries. It's like a no-brainer, and the fact that at some point. So I was working on my mind around that statement. And also to that, there's not just a puzzlement, I think in this country for a number of people who really care about living in this country with an element of safety and an element of being able to go to our places of worship and go to our homes and not have to fear for our lives. But a lot of the rest of the world is saying, you know what the problem is, folks, It's not like if we saw the whole playing field of all the human beings and what we share as far as what are the cooperative conditions for violence to happen. A lot of the world's got violent videos. A lot of the world's got people who are impoverished. They don't have education. They're hungry. They're restless. They're oppressed. They come from families that are dysfunctional. I mean, we pretty much have that as a human experience. The one main difference is that most of the countries in this world that have got some sort of, well, he says advanced countries, but countries that are thinking about democracy, that have some sort of wherewithal on how to support its citizens. This is the only piece that's different. Most of these countries have quite a bit of regulations on who carries a gun. All right, so if you were to put the whole playing field out there, considering all the things that we share, this is one thing that continually comes up that's different about us. And that we have in our Constitution these wonderful freedoms that we have. And this one about the right to bear arms has been totally blown away, over-exaggerated by some special interest groups in this country. And as a result, it has taken away the right of free speech. It has taken away the freedom of religion, the freedom of assembly. And it has become this huge entitlement for a selective number of people in this country. And as a result, the rest of the Constitution is being sacrificed. So that's kind of my soapbox thing. And I can't presume to know what Dylann Roof's mind was saying to him that propelled him to do this. It was a suffering, confused mind. And on some level, I understand that. And they're calling it a hate crime. And what some of them have said, there are people in this world that actually study the minds of people who create violence, that have particular hatred towards groups. And there are 3 things that they have in common. And when I saw these, I was quite startled by the fact that I have these cooperative conditions in my mind as well. First of all, is that to remember that this is a human mind and a human body that created this atrocity the other day. It's not some alien from some other planet. That one of the things we have to continually remember if we're going to ever cultivate compassion is to realize the mind and the body of Dylann comes from, and the causing conditions of that are basically the same as where our bodies and minds come under the control of afflictions and karma. Rebirth after rebirth after rebirth. So we've got to understand that. So here are some of the things that the folks who look at these minds say. The disturbed mind is creating stories about their target that make them into vile human beings, horrible creatures that are inherently awful from their own side and deserve what they get. Now, how many times under the control of jealousy or anger, confusion, pride, have we thought some element of that in our own minds so that we could put the enemy out there to see it as the cause of all of our problems? Okay, that's one of the things that they say about these. 50% of these hate crimes are done by young men under 25 that are white. Okay, the second one is the action is driven by some form of intense fear or anger like rage. Okay, I would say that there's a little bit of commonality there. They conclude, the people who do these things conclude after thinking about this story that they have concocted, that they now believe is totally true and objective, that the right thing to do and think is what they're about to do, and they have created an intense, passionate conviction about what they're going to do. So how many times have we taken our stories, we've gone through the whole proliferating, we've gone through the whole rationale, and we believe after a while that the way that we are perceiving a situation is objective and totally exists the way that we are perceiving it. And that's what we respond to. So these are the three common threads that they say that folks who commit these violent crimes have in common. There's a lot of other cooperative conditions, but these are some of the things. And what came up for me is the power of our minds when influenced by factors, by our environments, by conditioning, that this is where we go. So what I wanted to do, I won't be able to get through all of them today, but there is a Lamrim meditation that we do that's in the middle scope of the Buddhist teachings that has to do with being able to look at suffering, dukkha, how it arises, and what our situation is here in samsara. And it's called the factors that stimulate the arising of disturbing attitudes and negative emotions. This is to be able to look squarely on what type of environments, conditionings, situations seem to fuel and nourish these disturbing emotions that arise in our minds. And then as a result of that, then we create the karma that then propels a ripening result in the future, which is, if they're afflictions, they're going to be suffering. So given that we don't know Dylan Roof's background or life, we can look at our own and see how deeply we are affected by what we see, think, read, and who we associate with. Because that's got to be a huge part of what happened in his mind. And there are some of these factors, and I just wanted to run by them to just see, once again, that there is no dissimilarity between the perpetrators of these violent crimes and the rest of the human family. It's just that they've gone over to the extreme, and the cooperative conditions are far more intense for them. Okay, so I'll start on the first two here. There's actually 6 of them. Okay, so the potential. Since beginningless time, we have had the seeds or potential to generate disturbing attitudes and negative emotions, even though they may not be in our minds presently right now. All right, so life after life, under the control of ignorance and karma, we create particular habits of body, speech, and mind that are not helpful. So what we do is, looking at him and looking at what could have been his life, we ask ourselves, what seeds do we have in our minds that may not be manifesting right now, but given the right cooperative conditions, the right triggers, the right misconceptions, those afflicted states of mind will get fed and arise. And to put this within the context of what might have happened to this young man. All right, he's got this rage, this anger in there, who knows how long. What kind of triggers might have happened, what kind of situations, what kind of conditioning might have fueled these seeds, just like in our own minds. The second factor is what objects, people, situations trigger these afflictions. This is sort of like, what's the fuel? What's the food? From firearms to food. What type of objects, what type of people, from violent video games to unlimited credit cards. Looking at our ex who has their new love in their life, jealousy, fury arises. What are the objects and situations and experiences and people that trigger the arisal of the disturbing attitudes? And these are some of the things that we need to look at. What was going on in Dylan Roof's life? What were the objects, the people, the situations that triggered these intense afflictions in his mind? Not including maybe, violent video games, the friends he hung out with, who knows? Okay. So that's all I'm going to say for today. But what I really wanted to say, because I was so upset yesterday morning and I was so angry. I'm angry at the NRA, I'm angry at Congress, I'm angry at us as a culture, or sometimes our indifference, because it's not happening in our backyard. But to bring my mind back to saying, we are sentient beings cycling in samsara with these bodies and minds under the control of afflictions and karma. We want so much to be happy. We want so much not to suffer. And how confused we are on how to go about that. And these kind of tragedies are just sort of in our face saying, this is how bad it can get. This is how misconceiving, how confused, how deluded, how propelled by our afflictions we can get, that we are willing to take the lives of sentient beings. So to try to remember that we're not looking at an alien here, we're not looking at some sort of non-human, we're looking at a 21-year-old man. And to just try to keep that in mind as we deal with this, and to really bring into our hearts the families of these people and the community, and just to hold them and say, may they not retaliate with the same kind of mind of rage, the same kind of mind of fear, the same kind of mind of paranoia. May they hold each other with a lot of kindness, and may we really send that to them now, right now. Anyway, so I'll continue with more of the factors that really propel these kind of situations in our lives.